Hi, everybody. You are watching The New Normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa, and we are having a special episode today with my buddy Satoshi Sean. We are going to start a new adventure. I think we're going to have a roundtable kind of discussion. We're going to talk about blockchain and BS. So I'll be right back with Satoshi Sean. Hi, Sean. Thanks so much for joining me. I heard that you met some pretty interesting guys and had a blockchain discussion, and it went into some other things. And so you thought it might be a good idea to bring them on and explore some of those conversations.
Yeah. Say hi to your mom. Hi,
Hi,
Lisa's
Nana.
mom. The Dragon Chain has the World Blockchain Roundtable, and it's a really good discussion. It's usually about more the tech side of crypto and blockchain in general, but it's fun. Brilliant people. But we have fun and stray a little bit, so much so that we started talking about having a special show like once or twice a month on the other issues. But yeah, these guys over at Rivet, Greg and Sam, brilliant guys, really smart. And we after the stream ended, we talked for like another hour and a half or something, just off camera about stuff. So really looking forward to having them on here.
Yeah, well, let's bring them on. So this is Greg and Sam. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us. Greg and Sam, can you guys kind of introduce yourselves and let us know your positions or your roles in the project and a little bit about Rivet?
You go ahead, Greg.
Cool. I'm sure. Perfect. I'm Greg Lang. I'm the CXO and co-founder of Rivet, which is a blockchain infrastructure as a service company. That's a fancy way of saying you can use us to get quick access to otherwise complicated things to build applications. And then this is my colleague Sam. He is one of our genius technical minds. He's our principal architect. And one of the people who can do the things that I can't do, and I'll let him take it from there and see whatever else he wants to say about his otherwise gossamer resume.
Yeah. So thanks for having me on, guys.
Second, before you start, I need to say something. So I was watching the last show we did on the World Blockchain, and my kid comes in the room, and Sam was talking, and he said, "Who's young Matt Damon?" And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Look at him, dude. How do you say that's not a young Matt Damon?" And I looked, so now I can't unsee it, dude. Just want to do that before you start talking. Everyone else from now when they watch, it's young Matt Damon. It's really uncanny how much you look like him. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, Matt Damon's a very gorgeous man. I think I've got a bit longer hair than he does, though, so I don't pull it off quite that well.
But it's uncanny.
Oh, I got the wrong one. It's Sam. Okay, Sam's the Matt Damon.
Now you see it. It's like, oh my God, it's Matt Damon.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny.
It's pretty cool.
So as we were going earlier, I am Sam Johnson. I've been involved in Rivet since the very, very, very beginning. The principal architect, chief architect. We're a small company. The titles really don't matter. They're for show. But I've co-architected this project with Austin Roberts, who's the CEO, lead developer, CTO. Titles are, again, irrelevant almost. But brilliant guy. And what we're doing is fundamentally, I think, going to reshape how it is that people are going to try and get access into cryptocurrencies going forwards. If we can manage to pull this off well and pull it off, honestly, just really well, we're going to be a very, very interesting project going forward. I'm really excited where we're going right now, and can't really talk about it that much, but there's a lot of exciting things going on our back end. So we're a back-end infrastructure company. Ideally, no one knows that we exist because everybody's just using us and everything's just working that we are supporting.
Yeah.
So currently we support the testnets and ETC along with ETH, and we're looking at expanding in the near future. So it's going to be exciting.
And really the best way to think about us is if like you want to be a software developer in a blockchain after you get out of a coding boot camp. There's like all this technical stuff you have to figure out. Or you can connect with Rivet and we'll help you bridge that so that it's as simple as just figuring out a new basic library or basic set of API calls that you can understand. Like that's something that you could go to a boot camp and learn in, a weekend
kind
or
of
2
that
weeks.
next step after the boot camp or after those introduction or training. Interesting.
Because like if you remember when Apple App Store got big, right? They were just like bragging up all the developers who were getting going. People were building 15 different flashlight apps, but it was revenue for people. And it sort of made it blow up. And I think that's what's going to happen with the whole crypto space is people are going to build if they can get there. And we're going to be try to be that bridge.
That's awesome. Very cool. Anyway. So you guys can check out Rivet. It's all capital letters with underscores in between, RIVIT on Twitter, and you can find out more information from there. But welcome to the show. We're glad you guys are here. And before we got started, Greg and Sean were having a conversation about the pierced nipple pervert himself, Cuomo, and the big announcement that just came out, or the
you gotta people think you're talking about Keith Waring if you don't.
Cuomo.
If you don't make sure you'd say Cuomo. Okay.
Yeah.
Half the internet goes, "Hey,
pervert.
Why are you talking about me?"
No, I just think he's such a disgusting.
The arrogance with most people is really gets on my nerves. But I just watched the press conference from the Attorney General of New York, and the woman teared up when she was giving it, and it was unbelievable. She's like, basically, it's like we had the term woke first. It was our word. It's like that's our word. You can't use it, and it was really hijacked by by this progressive movement, which has bastardized it. And now we say, I'm awake, I'm not woke. But we were woke first when we could see what really was going on. And you could tell that this woman, she had that moment where she was like, oh my God, this man is our governor. And then, and then see like all the protection that he's had. Because basically she was saying like the volume of what we have found and what the state troopers have found. And it wasn't like super hard. This wasn't like some a year-long investigation. This was like a matter of weeks, and they found 74,000 pieces of evidence against the governor. Man. And she even expanded on it, which they don't expand on stuff. He's like, he groped so many employees and women, and then she was like, and very young women. And then she was just fighting back, wanting to like, oh my God, this dude.
It's hard to joke about this guy, right? Like he's a serious problem, and he's like he's an example of an archetype of a serious problem that we see. How do these kinds of people get into power? Well, is there a coincidence there, or is there
CIA honeypots and
a design?
Well, it's just like you see this. Correlation does not necessarily equal causation, but correlation does like raise its eyebrows and wink at you and say, "Hey, look over there," kind of, right? This guy obviously has been toxic. Like we know for a fact that that his policies have been disastrous. That he sent people to nursing homes that had coronavirus and was basically killing grandma as he was telling everybody that you shouldn't do that.
Not his mother.
Right? Like
definitely not his mother. She did not go, and he made sure of it.
Type for whom the ends justify the means, and it's all about power. Like, of course he's going to do this kind of stuff. The crazy thing to me is that it took putting somebody on camera to show the devastation that he caused in a case where this person cannot be ignored and you can't look away from the face before it's finally like something that people are willing to acknowledge, when we could have probably stopped this guy a long time ago.
So when you were saying she was crying, you were talking about the
Her
New York AG was trying
her
not
voice
to cry
her voice is cracking, dude. Yeah.
because of so when they talked about like other people, some of the videos and stuff they found of some other very famous people and the horrible things that they found of what they did, and like anyway, I thought you meant one of the women that he assaulted.
No,
I didn't
the
realize you were
Attorney
talking
General.
about the Attorney General is.
Her was that you could see that she had a woke moment. That she like, oh my God, this is who I work for. We've been protecting this guy. This is like she
Can I play
felt. You
this?
could see she
Is it
felt
very
dirty.
long? Is it very long? No, it's like 2 minutes. Let me play this.
Well, her
No,
part,
it's-
her introduction before it was only a few minutes.
1,000 pieces of evidence, including documents, emails, texts, audio files, and pictures. These interviews and pieces of evidence reveal a deeply disturbing yet clear picture. Governor Cuomo sexually harassed current and former state employees in violation of both federal and state laws. The Independence investigation found that Governor Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women, many of whom were young women, by engaging in unwanted groping, kisses, hugging, and by making inappropriate comments. Further, the governor and his senior team took actions to retaliate against at least one former employee for coming forward with her story, her truth. Governor Cuomo's administration fostered a toxic workplace that enabled harassment and created a hostile work environment where staffers did not feel comfortable coming forward with complaints about sexual harassment due to a climate of fear and given the power dynamics. The investigators found that Governor Cuomo's actions and those of the executive chamber violated multiple state and federal laws, as well as the executive chamber's own written policies. This investigation has revealed conduct that corrodes the very fabric and character of our state government and shines light on injustice that can be present at the highest levels of government. But none of this would have been illuminated if not for the heroic women who came forward. And I am inspired by all the brave women who came forward. But more importantly, I believe them. And I thank them for their bravery.
Wow.
Here are Gary's favorite records. Here's Gary in the zone.
Stop.
Here's Gary a few years ago.
Sorry, guys.
And here's how Gary lost 25 pounds on Noom.
Yay, Gary. Sorry, Gary.
Good for Gary.
Good job, Gary.
I
cow.
just
About
I just
time.
find it amazing that the people who yell, scream, and holler about sexism, racism, and all these isms of the world oftentimes are some of the worst purveyors of that very same thing that they do. Like, from the description, he sounds like your stereotypical womanizer. Sounds like your stereotypical guy that is that thinks he has all the power and can do whatever the fuck he wants and can go. And I don't know what your language rules are but can do whatever it is that he wants.
Freedom
Okay.
rules.
Cool. So can do whatever he wants though, and has no repercussions for whatever is going to come his way because he knows that the state and the power that he has is going to be able to utilize that to protect himself. And as long as he doesn't cross a line too far, he should be okay, right? But yet then he goes on TV and espouses all this insane crap about how Trump in 2018 was a sexist and disgusting Trump administration. And all the women it is that he assaulted supposedly, yet not a single. Anyways, that's another. But
So,
it's
something I've
just
noticed. It's Sam brought this up, and I talked to you about this, Lisa, last week with Fauci and and Rand Paul.
Here
It's so
own
textbook.
tweet. There should be a zero tolerance policy when it comes to sexual harassment and must
Except with
send a
me.
clear message that this behavior is not tolerated.
Yeah, except for me, but Twitter, I guess, didn't give them enough characters to put that
Yeah.
except for me.
And
But seriously, remember I talked to you about this, Lisa, with Rand Paul and Fauci. It's so blatant that these people are like abusers, and their behavior is so textbook. They flip it. I mean, Rand Paul's like, "Hey, you funded this, and it's gain of function research." And he's like, "You're gain of function research," and Rand Paul was confused, like, "What?"
I know you are, but what am I?
No, this is the definition of gain of function research, and you funded it. You funded it. I mean, it was ridiculous. And Cuomo literally went on. He had a big press conference like a week ago, and he was like, "You people are sick, and you said that putting people in a nursing home that they died, and people are dying, and you people are talking about this and trying to make it flip." He flipped it. He flipped it that people were angry about what he did, like they did something wrong. You know, the pattern of their behavior it's textbook abusive.
And Sean, and Sean and Lisa, I don't know how much of gamers you guys are and how much of the gaming news and gaming drama you follow, but we just had last week or 2 weeks ago now, Activision Blizzard getting railed by the state of California for a what is described as a systematically sexist and abusive work environment for the women that work there, to where it is that they couldn't even get promoted and work their way up in the company, and they had to deal with constant regular sexual harassment, to where it is that coworkers were getting drunk on drinking binges and having I think they called it like desk hopping, going from desk cubicle to desk cubicle, harassing the women that work there. And getting completely covered up. And they're getting rained by the state of California right now. That was major news in gaming. And Activision Blizzard, they have been very, very staunch proponents of anti-sexism, anti-racism, completely woke business model, to where even their company and their work on World of Warcraft and other major video games have been just completely flopping on their faces, because they just interject and promote their own political values over actually producing anything of value at the companies. I mean, it's just like you were saying, Sean, a completely regular pattern that is, I don't know. I guess you should expect at some point, if someone's going on Twitter yelling about these things, that they're also abusing women themselves. Like, I don't know what to make of it, though. Like, it's just so many bad actors in here.
Well, and that's a fairly good point, I think. You know, like, how many of these people are just replacing people who are just terrible too? And how long does it take before we're like, okay, is anybody that we're putting into these positions of power either, you know, not corrupt before they go in, or corrupted by the process? But like, it seems to be like a ubiquitous chain of just like nothing.
Well,
but
the process is broken. It's broken. We talked about this before, Greg and Sam, that it's broke, man. It needs to be redone, restarted. I mean, they need to wipe everyone out. I'm sorry, some people are going to get hurt, some good people get fired, but you've got to clean house. The way things were set up is you had your 3-letter organizations, and they were overseen by congressional committees who could censor them, who could crush them, who could put people in jail. But then those 3-letter agencies, they got smart and got dirt on all of those people on those committees, rendering them useless. So the whole form of checks and balances doesn't work. And that's a whole big thing. We can go back to when, because I know when it all started. It was Clinton. It was Clinton.
Oh no, it's way before then. Yeah.
No, it was Clinton when it happened. When Bush said, "Hey,
Hefner, the Playboy Mansion is a honeypot with all the cameras. It's the original Petal Island."
But but see, before, in order to get into government, I want to be a senator. I want to be the president. If you knew that, you had to watch your ass from high school on. Mm-hmm. Because if you did something terrible, I can't be president now. You're 20 years down the road. You knew you can't.
I suspect
And
it might
and we
be the
we took
opposite.
that away. Gary Hart was running for president. It was doing lovely. A picture came out of him on a boat with a lady that wasn't his wife, but that's it. And literally the next week, I'm getting out of the race. I'm no longer, done, because of a picture. And
Yeah, but
Bush
Sean,
started.
this is way, way before this. Tomorrow is the anniversary of Marilyn Monroe's death.
Well, oh, you're talking
And
about
she is
that stuff,
la-
but I'm talking about
laying,
yeah.
I'm talking about
I mean,
people's the American
Here's what they tried
people's
on Kennedy
idea
before they shot him.
of the idea,
yes.
the American people's idea of what a politician needed to be. When Bush was like, your character is bad because of this, and then Clinton said, hey, it's not about character, it's about the economy, stupid. And he wasn't calling Bush stupid. He was talking to the American people. He's like, hey, stupid, fall for this, and everyone fell for it.
Oh.
And he screwed a barely legal. He didn't even screw her. He did weird stuff. He's shoving cigars up barely legal's poo.
Ew.
In the White House. And that was about character. It's always been about character. We can't put people in
But
those
the
positions.
picture of Clinton wearing the Monica Lewinsky dress with the red shoes and smoking the cigar in the Podesta home or whatever. The joke about that, the joke about that picture is that no one was looking at the red shoes. They were looking at the blue dress. The distraction was that while Clintons were selling the U.S. to China, the red shoes in that picture, everybody was looking at the blue dress, the Monica Lewinsky distraction.
Yeah.
While the Clintons sold the U.S. to China.
Well, there's a long storied history.
Today we have a guy that's on the Intelligence Oversight Committee who had sex with a Chinese spy.
Yeah,
and he's not only still on there, he is talking holier than thou on CNN and MSNBC about
guys,
other people.
The reason that we have to be careful about what we say on this show is because the people in charge of these organizations have infiltrated all of the major corporate boards with these tech companies and are actively encouraging collusion with efforts to silence any kind of speech that exposes it. I mean, we're treading on thin ice right now, calling it out, right?
Is it really infiltrated? Because as I understood it, like with Fauci, for example, they just sends recommendations of, hey, can you make sure that no one that disagrees with this is able to have a voice? And
1920,
and regular secretive, essentially secret backdoor messages to individual companies that are platforms for speech and platforms for your voice and platforms for XYZ. What the fuck does platform even mean? The government is just sending them messages of what is allowed to be said and broadcast on their services. And I'm just here going, what is the legal process for dealing with this? Why is no one doing anything about this? I've not read about any major breaking lawsuits. I've heard about Trump maybe doing a lawsuit, but then it was some filing issues for with that.
Doing a lawsuit, and you can be a part of it. There's I'll get the link for you, but this came out today. Dr. Shiva discovers the existence of these long fuse report, exposes the bird, government collusion, and he has like the mapping of all this and how they're so okay, I'll go into
the partner support portal.
See that picture of Charlie with the tinfoil hat there in the corner. And that graph.
You know, when they disclosed all those emails that got that out in that FOIA request, you can actually go through. They forgot to redact all the personal email addresses. You can go find the contact email for these people at Twitter if you want right now.
Oh,
one thing that's really cool that Greg brought up, I think not Greg, but Sam brought up. Today's really important because we now know what it takes. Every time that something comes out and there's look at this proof and look at this and this about the election and this happened and look at this. Now we know what it takes. People say, what does it take? It takes 74,000 pieces of evidence. That's when you can get something done. So now we know it takes 74,000 pieces of evidence, and then something will get done.
Well, counting from when and counting from what, right? That 74,000 was probably tallied up retrospectively
No, that was in the past couple
only
weeks.
after
this
they
inter-
had
this-
to throw
in this
him under the bus
investigation-
to avoid getting caught up in it themselves.
In this
I mean, if we're being
investigation, they got
honest.
74,000 pieces of
Right.
evidence. So,
Right, and when did this one start? Did she say?
like 3 weeks ago.
Right,
A month
and
ago.
yet there's a long history with this woman, right? Like,
Yeah, how
she
long
was-
did it take for
she was
74,000?
back in 2008 when she replaced, or 2018 when she replaced Spitzer. Remember that guy, that gem of a person? She was at a Women for Cuomo rally where she basically defended him from saying creepy stuff at this thing. Like, she's been working with him
She
closely
defended him.
for how many? It's 3 years ago that happened now. Like,
I think
these
it's
people
interesting that this
can't go
came
crime
out
and not
today,
know.
and there was that shooting today at this place.
I mean, but Greg, you should actually understand a bit of that, about a bit of that action yourself, because I think you had to do similar whenever it is you were a lawyer, right? Regardless of your personal opinion of the matter, for your sake of your practice, you had to do specific things, and you're encouraged to do.
When it comes to the state, man. If I was
Yeah,
a
but
state
that's not-
politician,
that's
if I
not
was
her
a state
client.
lawyer, man,
That's just her boss.
my duty would be to bring that to the light as fast as humanly possible.
But the career is what's important. Getting up in the world is what it's
I don't think that's
important.
why
You don't take an oath. You don't take an oath to the career. You take an oath to defend the Constitution. And like I've said for months now, or for weeks now, that 90% of people that take that oath, police,
Never read it.
soldiers, and government employees, never read the Constitution. Yet they are
Right.
swearing to defend it.
Oh,
And they never read it.
And they couldn't have, because no doubt they hadn't been through all of the legal precedent that makes it so that the interpretation of X, Y, or Z pleasant sounding sentence doesn't mean what you think it means. Like, things have been weird since stare decisis started changing the meaning of those words. And it's been going on since like the Constitution existed and they instantiated courts and they had the first session of it, like.
Well, I think that goes to Sean's point where like we had the word first of saying woke, but
Mhm.
then they took it and twisted it and that's just like the CDC rewriting herd immunity to
Mhm.
then, redefine it. And that way people are going back, and that's a way of changing history too, because then if you go back through and say, oh, well, they had herd immunity, but then in the future they changed the definition. So they go back through and say, well, they had herd immunity, but then in the future, herd immunity means something totally different. You've just changed history.
Right. Oh, and especially if you control all the media, right? Like, they were comfortable with that all the way up until the internet started making it so that it wasn't just their enemies that were getting rug pulled for having dictatorial states. Their own madness was getting shown on video, right? We came to a point now where the free and open internet is their enemy because it makes it so they can't get away with stuff. My stance on this, my firm belief is that all this stuff has been going on since the beginning of power was power, right? This is politicians, elite positions of power, and everybody else. And up until the point that you could point a stream at it and take a picture of it with your smartphone, the boot was always there on the necks of the people.
So
and now they're
Greg,
just trying to shut down the channel that makes it so it's a little less convenient for them to continue to do what they've been doing since time immemorial.
On the topic of changing language, I
Sorry,
believe
that was a little heavy.
I believe that is a tactic that is encouraged and employed by either it was the Communist Manifesto, Rules for Radicals, or something dealing with the idea of color revolutions. I don't remember which one it was that was a principal tactic of, where it is that if you can utilize language, changing language, and force your opposition to constantly be on a backwards trek to changing their language in order to have any discussion with you, you're controlling all conversations. You're able to win any arguments going forwards.
Oh, that's been in Sun Tzu's Art of War all the way up to Machiavelli and probably 15 different flavors of Plato, right? Like, these ideas are not new. They just
I think that was actually part of the Communist Manifesto, was that changing language.
Oh yeah, I'm controlling the words themselves is always.
What I'm hoping when I see
what
this
does it
woman,
mean if the CDC is
woman up
changing
there,
language?
and she is giving, you can tell she's disgusted, but I think she's more disgusted than herself than she is in Cuomo. She's disgusted by Cuomo, but with all the backstory like Greg brought up, she's been defending this dude for a long time.
Right.
I hope that other people that are in these, powerful positions, but not the top, but they actually, have more power. Like the attorney general really has more power than the governor because she can arrest the governor. I hope that these people see what they've been doing and finally have that realization and just they quit. They come out and say, yeah, even if they come out and say, we've been doing this, I've been part of it. We've been
Or not
covering this
quit,
up.
but have that
We did
righteous
this.
anger and rise up and say enough.
But I mean, quit covering stuff up.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
Like I'm done covering this up. I was wrong. Even if they say, I'm going to go to jail, I don't care. We covered this up. We changed this. Whether it's about the election, whether it's about, political figures and sexual harassment, murders, whatever. I mean, when you're a critical thinker and you look at things statistically, you can look at the Clinton body count and know something's wrong. Something needs to be looked at. It doesn't, things don't add up. It's not that many people don't die of a heart attack, that are never had any kind of health problems before.
I think that we're at 4 of the Capitol Police have died by suicide now the past 2 days, right?
Yeah. That's another one. I didn't even, yeah, we could bring that up.
Oh, well, how about Craig Murray in the UK, in Scotland, is now going to jail for having the audacity to stand up to the UK government over how it's treating Snowden. They threw him in with them and then basically came up with a classification that said, oh, you're not a real journalist. You're just a blogger. So you don't count in terms of speech protection. Right?
Real journalists aren't journalists anymore.
Right.
They're actors, and real journalists are citizen journalists.
Right. This is why I believe in crypto as our route out, because I don't think these people have any intention of giving up.
No.
I think they'll say they're sorry when they get caught. And I think that the very next response is going to be to find vectors to make sure that those channels of transparency appear to get stronger while they get more diluted.
And the president of Mexico came out and stood up for Assange.
Hold on. Do you guys think, though, that Cuomo's actually going to see any kind of proper trial for this? Do you think that anything's going to come of this? What is your gut feeling here?
I think he's going to leave. I think after watching this.
So no.
Well, you know what? No, I'm not going to answer that because the media. We haven't seen the spin that the media puts on it yet.
I've not seen jack shit from CNN.
I don't know what kind of spin they're going to put on it.
I think it'll be very telling if what we see with it. So, either we're going to see this will be the start of seeing some accountability for people, but like I was just posting, like, Mr. Beast, somebody's daughter arrested twice, no convictions, brother arrested 3 times, no jail time, the niece 3 times arrested, no consequences, the son arrested once, no convictions.
Photos smoking crack with underage girls.
Right?
That's what it was.
Cocaine on Obama's daughter's butt.
74,000 pictures. Then he's going to get in trouble.
Right. And the response from the mainstream world was like, Twitter's going to block the oldest newspaper in the United States, the oldest established newspaper in the United States, from publishing anything about this by blogging their accounts.
But I think it could be very telling if we do see something from it. Then maybe the tide has turned.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
it's so emotional and it's so
blatant.
Much. It's so overwhelming. How can you cover? How can you spin that?
Yeah,
Sky News Australia, though, which is not exactly a small news organization, more proper than a lot of other news organizations, just got banned from YouTube over COVID misinformation.
Yeah, that was a big one.
But I think that was just a few days ago.
I think that was penance and a punishment by YouTube for what they did to Facebook, for what Australia did to Facebook and taking him to court and winning.
Dude, here's an idea. This is what we should do if we really want to know what happens, because they take advantage of people's short memories, right? If you're watching this and you got your phone, get out your calendar app, open it up, and fast forward to 2022, same day as today, and just put a message to yourself that says Cuomo and set an alarm, go look it up and see what happened to him. By then, we'll know what really went down.
But I think, like Lisa said, I think this is a pivotal thing, dude. I think this is a pivotal time when either the media backs down or they're done. Because if they try to spin it in any other way, I think this will make people say, "Oh, okay, everyone that's still on board, every sheep that still laps it up." I think a good 30 or 40% of them will wake up if they see this.
Yeah,
if they're like, "Nah, okay, those the nuts are right. This is it's over."
I think the United States, that's true. I think that our Constitution does have one unique property in it, right? And that's something that I'm really, like, I'm not always super sunshine and rainbows about all this stuff, but like I'm super proud of that single thing, this concept of rule of law that, despite the fact that it's distortable and not perfect, it so far hasn't given us what like is happening to the poor people in Canada and the even more poor people in Australia and the terrible situation in the UK. Like, at least we are not there. I mean, like, literally, was it the other day that China came out and criticized Australia for how they were handling their lockdowns? It was too heavy-handed.
Meanwhile, the Uyghurs.
Right.
And then, as Sean was saying just a second ago, we got Mexico on the flip side.
I think we have a chance as this country. I think that unless we take leadership back in the world and really show people, that we don't stand for this in a way that's callow or self-serving, that we really actually become that beacon for hope again for the rest of the world. I don't think that the rest of the world has much of a hope without us. And if we are the last people standing without them.
But there's not okay, we don't have it. When you say we, I would think federal. And like I've told Lisa, I'm very down on the way things are.
That's not federal. That's not
but what I'm saying, the federal, our federal government is no different than Europe, than Canada.
Right.
They have put out, this is what we're going to do. And literally Florida, Texas, a couple of states are like, no, that's not what we're going to do. So it's not us.
We're supposed to throw off our federal government. The Constitution is to restrain government.
Yes.
The individual is the one with the most rights, and our government is supposed to serve us, and our laws are supposed to restrain government and serve us. Like our governor here in Oklahoma has quietly put something in place, and really it's not necessary because our individual rights are more powerful than these government mandate BS. But he's put it in place to ban mask mandates and mandatory pricks.
And yet you got states like Louisiana, again, Southern Belt state down there. They just introduced the mask mandate again, and I'm just here going, what world are we living in?
That's what I'm talking about.
Individually, like it's not constitutional. So I'm just saying, like, it's just upside down. It's top. But
what I'm saying is our federal government is the same as all them. They put out a mask mandate.
Yeah.
They put out that.
Yeah.
And then most states, there's 50 of them, fall into place. There's a handful that say, no, that's not how it works. That's just like the old ladies. There's a bunch of old lady states are like, no, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
Right.
And they're saying, no, we're not going to have mask mandates. And then they're psychotic. And then that brings me to a whole nother thing, which is really bad here in Texas. And we are moving. I don't like to talk about this. I don't like to, because it's really bad. But there's thousands and thousands of immigrants coming across the border. Not Mexicans, not South Americans. Mm-hmm. There's Africans. They're coming from everywhere now. Mm-hmm. And 30 to 40% of them, in most cases, have COVID. Bad. I mean, not like, oh, they're you have to test them. I mean, there was a family of people in Whataburger like a week or two ago that were collapsed, and there was a bunch of illegal aliens there, and they had late stage bad COVID. So anyway, like 30-40% of these
How
are
do you
coming.
know they have COVID if the CDC has recalled the test for inaccuracy?
Right.
That is
Well,
this
that's
Dude,
I don't want to.
I
Don't even
was
get
called
into that.
such a conspiracy theorist a
ridiculous.
year ago for
Yeah,
that.
I want to hit on this. This is what's happening here.
This
And this is a
so
very
ridiculous.
bad thing. This is a very bad thing.
I don't know, man.
So there's
I think it's
thousands
a
and
bunch of
thousands
fear.
and thousands and tens of thousands of these and I think this is so nefarious, but this is what I think is going on. This is my tinfoil hat theory. They're coming in, and you know that the federal government was busing them to they say wherever they want to, wherever they
And
want to go
flying
to.
them. And
And
we're
now they're
paying for it.
flying them now in like huge jets, huge planes, and dropping them off. I think that they are taking these people and they are dropping them off in those defiant states that aren't instituting mass mandates, and
They're putting them where they need the votes.
I think they're
for the
I think
midterm
that they're
election.
taking these sick people and they're infecting those states to change their numbers to be worse than every other state.
There's not really an infection.
Right.
There's no dead people.
So that's the thing is like,
There's
if they're
no
doing that,
deaths.
it's a pretty crappy bioweapon, right? Like,
There's
It
no
is a
deaths.
crappy bioweapon, but we're talking about the winning the minds. So when they say, "Oh my goodness, Florida did this," and they had 3 times the numbers, look at Texas. Didn't mask up. They have 4 times the numbers. That becomes the science.
I mean, that's what they could say, but like the CDC wouldn't have statistics on those things for the whole time span. Like, I mean, okay, I'm setting aside, so I haven't followed the details of this. I don't know any of the research that you're following. I'm not going to say that that you're absolutely 100% wrong that they're not doing something weird.
Well, hold on. Let me get to the last point. So the governor has had Texas troops deployed all over the border, working with law enforcement, with federal agencies as support. But what he did last week was he gave them all full law enforcement authority. So now all Texas Guard troops have full law enforcement authority and are actually police. And what they're going to do is directly combat federal agents, Border Patrol, whoever, that as they bring them in, federal troops are going to arrest them. And they're not going to allow them to go on. So the federal troops or federal agencies are going to bring them in. Hey, we're going to take you and process you, and we'll take you to where you want to go. Federal or state troops are going to say, no, you're not. We're arresting this person and taking them out of your custody, and we are taking them and locking them up. If they have COVID, they're getting kicked back across the border. That's what we're doing now. That is our troops. It's not even our police. These are troops that are acting in complete defiance of federal officers. This is a very big step.
You know, I'm not sure where, like, I'm completely on, like, I'm not gonna say you're wrong because there's tons of stuff I don't know about and I haven't read anything about this. You know, like if there's stuff to read out there about it, definitely would like to read that so I can learn about it.
What the governor said.
But you know, all of that stuff aside, right? Like, if they're using, you know, COVID that way, all they have to do is continue doing what they did for the first half, right? All they have to do is flip the switch on the PCR tests and crank them back up to 42 cycles, so that, you know, like anybody with a you know, with a remnant of a drop of a sneeze on their left arm from back when SARS-CoV-1 was a thing,
Human DNA.
will test positive. Yeah, exactly. Anybody with human DNA, if you run it up to the maximum number of cycles where the test completely breaks, right? Like, it's hard for me to connect with theories using that that thing. I'm not going to say anything that's going to get the channel banned, but like that virus thing.
So I want to say that the best I can get behind here,
like
whenever it comes to
propaganda
this
to
theory,
me.
Sean, is that at worst I feel that it might raise some numbers that they are measuring for. But one thing I've been having issues with this second wave pandemic is that the death rates don't match up. And my understanding of viruses is that viruses tend to go up in infection rate, but go down on mortality rate, and also their symptoms tend to get lighter. I've read nothing from standard traditional media about that with this specific variation. They only talk about how people that have been vaccinated are able to transmit it. And that brings in a whole nother measure with why bother with all these new measures of forcing vaccinations and the stuff going on in New York, for example, whenever the vaccine isn't doing anything for this. And the numbers that they're saying are not differentiated between the new Delta variant and the old COVID that we knew and love of COVID-19, or one of those variants that came out from that. We don't know what it is that they're measuring. We don't know what is it reporting. And whenever it is that, I believe it was the other day, yesterday, I believe, one of the people for the Biden administration was being asked and being pressed for, are they testing for specifically which variant of COVID? Or are they just COVID numbers? And we don't know if this new rise in COVID is actually because of the old COVID-19 or if it's because of the new Delta variant. And the person basically said, we trust the science. This is what the CDC has told us. We do not question it. And it was a shit show of an interview.
Don't show us anything anymore. Like, we've never had numbers published, right? Like this actual thing
have to use
has never been characterized.
I'm probably going to end up losing my channel because we're
right.
We didn't have a pre-talk, and we can't say certain words.
Okay.
Sorry.
And we talk about
Okay, so
infection, the great infection, and pricks, and
so all those people that talk about those things, not here. Someone who isn't me or someone who isn't anyone here. Like, seriously, hey, just sidebar, hey, YouTube, we're literally trying to talk about this without running afoul of it. We're not trying to tell anybody not to get their own opinions on this.
Medical advice.
Not medical advice, whatever, like all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about the implications of policies around generic things that may or may not be whatever. Anyway, I don't know.
All the disclaimers.
Right.
Plus, there's a third varied ant. It's a different kind of ant, it's a varied ant. But there's a third new one now I've heard in Brazil. There's a new one.
Lots of ants, Brazilian ants.
Yeah, so there's this Brazilian ant. So, and like Lisa, you said, it's just, on one side, it's a complete money grab. If there's like 5-6 boosters a year that you have to have, that has to be taken care of, that has to be paid for. I like Beatles's. I think he tweeted the big pharma's their profit projections are astronomical.
Oh, okay.
For the next few years.
I think we can talk about this aspect of it without touching on any of the forbidden. The World Health Organization and the way that the World Health Organization and the way that owls. I don't know.
Gets it. All right.
Right.
I thought that was China. Sorry.
Thanks. I'm really glad that I didn't quite get that the first couple of times. You got my goat. You got my owl. How exactly were the transactions structured with Big Pharma? Do we really know how that all worked? Like, wasn't there some kind of group purchase organization that went on where they bought these sort of promised solutions en masse? As I recall, there was something in the news about trying to make sure that everybody had a fair chunk of the supply, and this was a big chunk of what Bill Gates poured into the WHO, right?
Yeah, and the
How did
patents
that get
are all dated
arranged?
back from, years and years ago that go
Right.
back to him. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's correlated or that that there's causation here, but I do notice correlation between about the time that they started talking about making these kinds of arrangements and around the time that some of the policies shifted towards things that, maybe China would prefer the West adopt. And that all of that sort of coalesced around that agreement to buy. This emergency use authorization seemed to fall into place all over the world right about the time they were
You also saw 5 nations presidents be assassinated, kidnapped or assassinated after refusing those pricks.
right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I'll have to get the list because they're like little bitty countries
Was
that
the
I can't
Haitian,
remember all the names.
Haitian,
I believe that was one of them.
and
I
Haiti?
have to find the list.
If you want to talk about Clintons, boy,
Yeah, their honeymoon
they are.
destination.
Hate you. Just. I remember.
Remember when that Catholic dinner or whatever when Mr. T roasted old Hillary and talked about it takes a village, and he said, yeah, she took many of them.
Right.
When it comes to her, no one gives this man credit. He's a freaking American hero.
Yes,
Sinbad.
he is.
Sinbad.
Oh God, you're right.
Really?
He's awesome.
He is a hero. Do you know what started all of the truth? Was Sinbad. That he's the one that told on Hillary that when she misspoke, and that's another damn word. That's when it all went to hell. When we let her say I misspoke instead of say she lied. When she said we came in under sniper fire, and blah, that big lie that started everything. He was
Benghazi.
with her on a USO tour,
I
and
forgot
he said,
about that.
"Man, that bitch is lying." He said there wasn't no sniper fire. Him going against her and putting that out, that's what started everything.
I
And
didn't know about that.
yeah, he's the one that told on her.
Huh.
He's the one, Sinbad, one of the huge comedian. Not so much since he did that, but yeah, it was Sinbad.
Did he disappear too, or is he still alive?
No, he's alive, but his career disappeared.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I did not know about that. I have to go look all that up. Now
Yeah,
you gave me another rabbit hole to go look.
yeah.
Dude, that's
But
pretty good.
Think,
That's some
I
good
think
deep
what
history there.
we're getting back to the whole beginning part of it, and Greg asked, how do these people get put into power? I think the United States has been for a while now, and I think it's hopefully falling apart, trying to really make these people like oligarchs. We really, really are. We're moving towards that system.
I think it goes back a lot further than we'd like to admit, and then that history will teach us and that we'd like to remember. Like, I mean, when did the Federal Reserve come in, and when did that happen to come in with a promise that the income tax would just be on the wealthy and just a tiny percent? And they defined wealthy to be like what more people would consider wealthy than.
And only for a short time after the war. It was only
Right.
for,
Oh yeah, I mean,
like the Patriot Act. It's very temporary.
right. The way that World War I got started in and of itself is such a cryptic mess that we don't even have any idea what went on there. I mean, there was a long, long history of this, and it goes back to, the arguments between the Anti-Federalists and the Federalists prior to the Constitutional Convention. Like, we have not been building the free world that we'd imagined. And I really do think this has been going on all along, and I think that the internet started to free us. And I think that is what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, and it only took 10 or 15 years for them to take control of it.
And
because when it came out, the internet did scare the crap out of them.
Well, it was also their friend, right? Like they saw the destabilization of countries that they would prefer got in line with the empire and started supporting the petrodollar. They saw them getting torn apart by their own people when they had no luck destabilizing the region on their own, even if they sent in literal CIA people to go do things like get rid of a democratically elected ruler in Iran. Like, we've been trying to screw with that region forever, and the internet started working. They were like, yes. And then all of a sudden,
when I'm reading this, Lisa,
like, oh,
this that's such a basic question. There was hundreds of troops. There was press. There was press there. There was the whole other countryside of it. All those people. There was aides. There were so many people. Why did it take him to do it? Why wasn't it just instantly corrected as soon as she said it? As soon as she said that she was under
and
sniper
manipulated, and like, yeah, we are
That's
in the
what's scary.
Truman Show,
It was the beginning of the echo chamber too, where you supported your team in the comments by putting on your "I disagree with you no matter what you say" jersey and saying "screw you, everybody else." There was sort of the early days of that.
Which me and Lisa have been talking about that this week. That now it doesn't matter. We've been divided, and they've been pushing us in such a division for so long that it doesn't matter if you can give someone a bunch of proof in a positive way. And they're just like, they'll make excuses. They'll rationalize. They'll do anything rather than just say, "Oh man, I was wrong on that one."
I feel like the real answer is actually going to sound, and this is going to sound kind of corny and maudlin, but I think the real answer is actually recognizing our common humanity. I did a little experiment on Twitter over the course of watching the August 1st UK Freedom Day protests, where the people were out in force trying to, or no, it was Berlin, the Berlin Freedom Day protest, where they're out there trying to say you can't take away our right to free assembly, regardless of these policies. This is not something we're going to obey. And there were tons of people out, and they were showing videos and putting them up on Twitter. And then occasionally, a couple comments down from the top, there'd be somebody who was like, there were no freedom protests. These were dangerous COVIDiots, and they're deserving what they get, and blah, blah, blah. And rather than getting angry at them and responding, trying to respond by saying, fact, 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 counterpoint, 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 respond saying, these are human beings. Just stop dehumanizing them. They're being brutalized. What are you doing? They're human.
Well, was it that the New York Times
still has a powerful resonance, I think.
That New York Times reporter last week said that everyone that voted for Trump was an enemy of the state.
No, I know it's dehumanizing. It's dehumanizing.
But dude, that's a chunk of the country. That's like your brothers, your cousins, they're enemies of the state. That's such a.
Well, I had a friend that was visited by a 3-letter agency, and they left. The last thing they did was leave a card, and they said, if you know any, let us know. If you contact us if you know any extremist Trump supporters. And
we don't care if you know extremist other supporters.
Yeah, and he was like, well, I'm a Trump supporter. Or Trump supporters, and she's like, and he was like, I'm a Trump supporter, and they're like, well, we mean extremists, violent ones. And he was like, what? Trump supporters aren't violent extremists. What are you talking about? It's just bizarre, like an alternate reality.
Right. The only thing that happened that day that was violent, that ought to have been called out and wasn't, was the woman getting shot unarmed,
which they just came out saying that the and I'm gonna not have the right but it was not the family member of the woman that was murdered, but the attorney general or something, somebody from the Capitol ordered her cremation 2 days after.
Lisa sent me that one video of this isn't on camera. This is like somebody with a phone, but this guy with a MAGA hat on is way away from the actual protest, but at the side of the Capitol, and he's over there. And he's yelling and screaming at these full riot gear Capitol Police. You know, they look like they're from a sci-fi movie. And he's screaming out, "Why aren't you doing anything? Why aren't you calling
They're
for
tearing
backup?
down our
This is
Capitol. Why
our
aren't you doing
Capitol.
something?"
Why are you all standing here?
Mhm.
Why aren't you calling for backup? Why aren't you over there helping them?" I mean, screaming, and there's these officers are just looking at him like,
Right.
They're doing what they were ordered to do.
Well, I mean, and technically they could have just been following the same policy that they had all year long. You know, like it could have even been just like pure ineptitude. But bottom
It
line
also
for
said
me,
in the report that the only violence was, or not the only violence, but the report was that the Capitol Police were shoving people down the stairs. So it's not that the rioters were coming up and that the police were being pushed back. It's that the police were pushing them down the stairs.
right?
So
Well,
there's things like that.
I just feel like the thing that we can really do to unify everybody. We can all disagree on which side to support, but we can't possibly any of us really disagree when it comes to armed agent of the state holding weapon, attacking human being who is not armed agent of the state, who is citizen, who is person, who has a family, who lives a life outside of all of this, and they're there for whatever reason, whether you agree with it or not. I think we can all freaking agree that a state agent brutalizing a person who belongs to somebody somewhere who is not out there with the backup and the force to do that.
And no intention to harm. Yeah.
But that's why it's so important for that person to be your enemy. That's why it's basic psychology, like when you're going to war.
Right.
You know,
why are we
and
falling
you
for it?
have to teach racism. You have to teach racism. I mean, in the Vietnamese War, World War II, you have to hate someone because it's a human being. To kill another human being who literally you don't know, who didn't do anything to you, for an ideology or for something that a government tells you to do or something that a government is doing, it goes against our nature to do.
Right.
So you have to learn to hate that person. There has to be division. And I think that's why it's so important to push that division so that can be, even though if you're not going to do it, but so that someone can accept it. So you can say we can all agree.
You're not advocating that. You're saying that for their narrative.
Yeah,
that's why
has.
That's why you see
I think
media,
that's why they have to do it,
or that's why they are.
Like Greg said, we all have to agree that it's wrong, but that's why they push it so that some people can disagree with that.
Right.
I mean, and this is why it's so important, though, that you dehumanize and you criminalize and you otherize and all these other ISIS you can come up with. You essentially make it to where your opposition is the worst of the worst. For example, where it is that Biden calls the GOP voting on these new voting laws that they're putting in place to bring back the allowances they did for the COVID lockdown voting that happened in 2020. They're trying to bring that back, and that's being called a bigger threat since the Civil War by Biden on national TV. And I'm still just amazed at that, and that there's
survivors aren't alive from that. That's a pretty cool thing to say to all those people.
Jim Crow, like since the worst thing since the Civil War, this is Jim Crow. In the new Jim, those are all designed to make you hate anyone connected to it.
Right. And also slap the people in the face that actually suffered through a time in history that was a lot more suffering and pain oriented. Like the Civil War was awful. I mean, one of the bloodiest wars ever. I mean, not to mention the fact that they didn't even have anesthesia yet, where you could, like, if you needed an amputation, it was, here, son, bite down on this wooden stick. I've got to go get my rusted saw.
That is what's going on. That was cousin versus cousin. That was family versus family. You could have had families that moved south for, to find their fortune or whatever, and it was family fighting family, which is what we have now.
Right.
And it's not just really political. I mean, there's families like you can't come to Christmas because of your political
simulation and simulacrum, and the map has swallowed the territory. We cannot tell the difference between the satire and the real anymore.
In my family, the only people who are
Messed
doing that are on the more left-leaning side that are doing that to the right side of the family. Like it's pretty blatant,
Yeah.
and it's all in this moral supremacy trap that they're in. Like people have gone from being racial supremacists to moral supremacists, and by deeming themselves as being the most morally right and the most righteous, they're able to justify all these insane acts because they are in the right. There is no seeming like humility in their actions or in their thinking or going back and actually doing self-reflection on what they're doing. It is all just based on that immediate self-gratification of being morally correct
Right.
and
So
just going on a power trip of
me
it.
and Lisa were talking about this week. I'll let her kind of to bring it up a little more, but
Go
it was
for it.
about Pegasus and the whole Pegasus spying thing in the
Oh,
in-
right.
on cell phones and what Snowden had talked about.
Thing.
But what I had heard and told her about and we had looked into is in the beginning who funded Pegasus and started it all out, and it was quite surprising. Lisa, why don't you talk about that?
I'm gonna bring it up, but I've got to go. I've got my niece here visiting, and I'm like already an hour and a half in, and I hate to do this to you guys, but I'm gonna let you guys keep going because I can let the stream keep running. So I'm gonna dip out. But I've had so I had a couple weeks ago, I had Amy send me who I do my Tuesday show, send me a article that the FBI made an announcement that they were going to start working with carriers and wireless carriers, and that they were going to be interceding or intercepting text messages or messaging with people, and to stop any disinformation about the great infection. Currently, my mother is unable to call me. My son is unable, or no, I'm unable to call. No, my mom is unable to call me. My son is unable to call me. I'm unable to call Public, who I do my Wednesday show with. I had my friend that was visited by the 3-letter agency who they printed out and showed him pictures of that he had texted to me while he was in DC on January 6th. And then I've been on the phone with my carrier. They can't explain why I can't receive phone calls only from these certain people. And they'll call me back and let me know, but then nothing happens. So like, there's just all this stuff going on. And I think some of it is just intimidation. Some of it's harassment. I think it reminds me of when a few years ago, the Tea Party, a lot of nonprofits were harassed by another 3-letter agency. And I think there's a lot of that. And part of it is, I personally, I'm at a place where I feel comfortable with, I think it's a dark to light thing, that this has always been going on and that the good guys are in control and that they're making it so blatantly obvious. It's that, no, this has always been going on. We're going to show you now. So you'll get a little pissed off about it and you'll say enough, and that you do deserve your privacy, and you will stand up for yourself and say, you know what, it's worth my privacy and not be so damn lazy. And it's not always about convenience. And I think that blockchain is part of that. So it's so nice to meet you guys. Like I said, I'm going to dip out. I'm going to let
Thank you so
Sean
much
take
for having
over.
us.
And really look forward to talking with you guys again. And
Yeah, let's talk about when you're in Kansas City. We got to figure that out.
yeah, I will connect with you, and hopefully we can all meet up at the meetup and all that stuff.
Love you, Lisa. Appreciate you.
Love you,
Thank
Sean.
you.
Take care.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much for
bye-bye.
having us.
Y'all have fun.
I agree, Nana. Definitely, I'm more than ready for this to stop. So what we found out though about the Pegasus is, do you know who funded it? Who started it?
I'm pretty sure that was the company out of Israel that was it's like NRO or something like that, right?
No, it wasn't. The money came from Mr. Soros.
Well, I mean, that's not surprising.
Yeah.
Careful. YouTube is pretty Ben heavy on
Yeah, I
talking
know. I
about
said it weird.
Well, I mean, any
cirrhosis, Mr. Cirrhosis of the liver. He's the one that funded it.
right, or an archetype like that, right? Like any investment banker who made their money in corporate rating sometime between the 1960s and the 1990s that didn't try to acquire a national defense company, but instead bought banks.
Yes.
The poor bastard that tried to do the national defense company not make out as well. That's a
It's
fun
just
one to look
impressive.
up if anybody wants to, but just leave that on the back burner.
It's just impressive how many times that this guy ends up batting 100 for getting all the more communist-leaning activities and the more authoritarian-leaning activities, even fascist in some
Yep.
ways activities. Like the things it is that his money ends up going into are just so widespread and leaning on just that one side of the fence.
What floors me is that there's money that you can spend in this legally. You can make this stuff and be the target of international police operations to shut you down, or you can make this stuff and you sell it to the right people, and you're just a security company. What the fuck? We don't offer that for.
It's like the difference between being a prostitute and a porn star.
Yeah, we don't offer. We don't allow legal versions of bioweapons manufacturers. Why do we allow legal versions of cyber weapon manufacturers? You don't have nuke companies that are only illegal if they're selling to the wrong set.
Yeah, Mr. T is still around. He's still working. It is weird how Soros is so environmental, and he promotes this, warm fuzzy thing, but he does end up always on the side of totalitarian communist, just the worst side.
Best intentions, right?
And how it's like his own country, like passed laws against him. They Hungary, he's from Hungary, and Hungary, they passed a law like we hate Soros law or something. It was it's kind of nuts, man.
I guess he's not a hungry man anymore.
But it's also odd and funny that he's supposed to be worth $8 billion, but he's given away $23 billion. Just in the past few years. Well, so everyone says it's obvious he's worth way more than $8 billion.
It also depends on how much of his money is actually liquid versus not liquid and what they use to measure it. Because I know that you can do certain things with assets and over leveraging your assets to get more money to loan out, basically. And as long as you keep on top of your obligations to that, no one really tends to care, especially if you're doing multinational things. That's sometimes hard to track down what is over leverage and what isn't.
I think it's just hidden, and I think I'm worried, and I do think, and I am worried that I think he has a bunch in crypto, because it's come out that he has crypto.
Anybody saying that they're not buying crypto and they have billions of dollars either doesn't know what their financial advisor is doing with their money and they've bought crypto and they just don't realize it, or they're fucking just straight up lying to people so that they don't inadvertently. Right. They don't
I like crypto, but I like candy. I got candy.
They don't want to trigger a run until they've bought the maximum amount they can stuff away without anybody noticing.
Yeah, like
who do we think the crypto whales are? I mean, fucking come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. It's like when something comes out, it should be a watershed event. It shouldn't be. It's like the Area 51 thing I talked to you guys about. It comes out, it should be this huge watershed thing and change everything and change people's opinions. But it's just like, I knew it. That's it. That's the end of it. Like Jamie Dimon, Bitcoin is terrible. It's rat poison. No. And then he's fudding it and pushing the price down back in, 2018. And then he's buying it up and it comes out. And that should have been, that's it. It's done. And then he's still trying to talk crap about it.
You know who I'm pissed off the most about from fudding that stuff, man? What? Is fucking what's his butt on HBO, the British guy, John Oliver.
Mhm.
He did the most disgusting slash piece on ICOs that was just like targeted squarely at the soft center of the most ignorant elements of our generation.
Which was that the Beanie Babies one or a different one?
Oh, it was that whole segment. I mean, it was just
And-
a huzzah for fucking throwing it all under the bus.
And there was recently one that was aired on the History Channel in the past month or two. Did my internet go out?
No, Greg is frozen.
Okay. So there was one that came out recently on the History Channel that was completely demonizing the action of mining and how it is that mining works, and treating it as if all actions around mining and the entire backing of cryptocurrencies was a criminal organization, and one entity had mined these things, all the way back to Satoshi, and how Satoshi had this dark money that can undermine and overthrow the economies. And it was completely surreal. I had my parents so like nervous about what the hell was going on because
when Soros actually had the pound pulled off of the market and said he was going to do that, the British pound. He actually said I'm going to do that. Him and some investors did it, and he made like 1.2 billion off it. And most everyone else that invested, they made like 400 to 800 billion. And they literally said, we're going to do this. And they did it. And they crushed the pound. But that's okay. That's okay. That's brilliant strategy for an investor.
rules for thee, but not for me.
Yeah.
Words to live by. I think that since Greg, I guess he got dropped out. I'll send him a message, but
that is kind of everything we've been talking about in a nutshell. Rules for thee and not for me. But I am hoping this Cuomo thing is a big deal.
Man,
I hope, especially with the what I hope with what the AG, I hope people see that as an example, and it has an effect where people start coming forward.
in my opinion, people get stuck in the trap of almost a sunk cost fallacy, whereas they've done shit to cover it up so much that they have doubled down on this, tripled down on it, quadrupled down on it, ignored people coming out, suppressed things, participated in the suppressing of things, and been proactive in trying to keep information from coming out, that they don't feel that they have any right to do this. They might, and because of the fact that they're also stuck in the trap of my career, I need to do this. I need to toe the line of what my career makes me need to do. They get stuck, and I am more pessimistic than you, I guess. There, like, I just don't see this going anywhere. Really, I see it as a slap on the wrist, maybe some form of a jail time, but it's not going to be much for them. Like, I don't see any hard
6
court
months
case
in
coming out of
jail,
this.
3 months in jail, 90 days in jail for the governor is not a slap on the wrist. If that happens, that would be amazing.
Yeah, but you get any old Tom, Dick, and Harry to go in and do the same shit he did, they'll be in jail for 5-10 years.
If you have anyone do anything, even just jaywalking, if you have 74,000 jaywalking tickets, you're going to be in prison for the rest of your life. I don't care what it is, dude. 74,000 of anything. Yeah, Mr. Sir, Germany is making some big moves when it comes to crypto.
Depending on the crime, it could also be like an instance of crime per frame of video too, since they said they had video. And Greg, I think it's in the backstage if you can let him in.
Well, if he's groping, if you're groping, that's assault,
Yeah.
So that is real. That's a real thing. That's not, toxic work environment and harassing. That's actual assault.
I think Greg's trying to get back in right now.
Oh, you know what? He's fucked.
Oh, you can't let him in?
No, I'm just on the show. So I would say I can't bring up anyone's chats over here. So yeah, I guess that is terrible. I was going to say it's a good time to end it with the rules for thee and not for me, because that is it. Everyone, please check out Rivet. Go to Twitter and follow him. check out like I said, we do the blockchain roundtable. It's on Thursday on Dragon Chain on their channel. Subscribe to my channel, Satoshi Sean, and my Twitters and Instagrams and all that stuff. Really appreciate Lisa and her bringing us on, even though we talked all the time and she just sat there and listened. I felt terrible. Because she's soft spoken, but she has a lot to say. She's a really smart lady.
I'm much more crass and rude.
Yeah, we all are. Yeah, the three of us especially. Thanks, Mr. Sir. Thank you, Crypto Nana. That's Lisa's mom, Crypto Nana. All right, you guys take care. It was good hanging out with you, Sam. Or young Matt Damon. Dude, I'm sure you've got that all the time, right?
I've had it a number of times. Yes.
Yeah, because I didn't even think about it. As soon as my son said it, he was like, "You're not going to tell me that's not Matt Damon." I was like, "Oh my God, you're right. It's so weird." And then now I just see Matt Damon. And now when I listen to you talk, you even talk like Matt Damon a little bit.
Oh man, I hate my voice, so thank you very much.
Dude, you sound like him. Your inflections, it is odd. It's like it's Are you related? No, you're right.
No, not at all related.
Seriously, I seriously asked that in all seriousness. All right, you guys take care. It was good hanging out. Check out everything I said to check out. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Oh crap! I don't know how to end this.
Oh,
Because I can't end it. I can't end the thing. Well, me and Lisa didn't think this out. Okay.
Quick center.
All right.
Tweet.
I'm gonna just try to. I'm gonna X out of it, and hopefully it ends it.
All right. Take care, Sean.
All right.